My name is Chris Dietrich. I am your MC for this evening's event. I was previous MAC board member and president for many years. I'm also a concerned citizen vehemently opposed to the Mariner East pipelines. I have been deeply honored to help curate this exhibit, but the real star of the show is Carrie Barkham. Carrie, there you are. Thank you so much. As a MAC gallery artist and longtime pipeline activist and part of the Mama Bears Brigade, she came up with this idea for the show and galvanized dozens of artists so that these works could come together in this amazing array of resistance art and documentation. You can also see one of her paintings here on display, and maybe she can tell you a little bit more about that, and one in the back as well. She's an exhibiting artist ongoing. A big applause for Carrie. Thank you so much for making this. To be honest, there are so many people involved in this resistance movement that I could stand up here for days telling you all about their tireless energy and voices from one side of the state to the other and beyond. Many of you know the tenacious people for whom I speak. Many are here tonight to share their thoughts and voices, their hearts, and their art. I also have to acknowledge my friend and personal pipeline shiro, Eve Miari, who has been spearheading the Middletown Coalition for Community Safety, galvanizing all angles to secure our community's safety, our kids, our neighborhoods, our futures, and I think a lot of this, it probably would have happened eventually, but she started a lot of it and made a lot of this come together, and she was right up in there today with Governor Wolf and did an amazing job. So kudos, Eve. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We selected tonight, August 22nd, to do this open mic because today is a very significant day. It's the 3-year anniversary or birthday of the Middletown Coalition for Community Safety. Right. And so for those of you who may not know, the Middletown Coalition is really the first little community-based safety coalition that kind of sparked this larger regional and now statewide movement. And so the piece that I'm going to do tonight comes directly from the work that we've done through Middletown Coalition and the Mama Bear Brigade. But before I start, I just want to say that the last 3 years, I was saying to Carrie when I came in, it's sort of like I can't even remember life before this all started. It's such a defining point in my life and all of our lives that I don't even remember who I was before I was this person who resists this pipeline. And the very first day, August 22nd, 2016, when I first showed up at my first township meeting ever in my life, was the Middletown Township meeting. I had my little baby in the ergo, and she was getting noisy and fussy, so when I went up to speak for my first time ever speaking before a township council meeting, I just needed to nurse her so she would be quiet. And now she's 4.5. So I think that's a good way of describing how this has consumed our lives and become our lives. I'm sure my daughter doesn't remember a time before any of this existed. But because this is so much about our children and our role as mothers and fathers and parents and grandparents to protect our children, that has become a theme throughout all of our actions and particularly our direct actions. So I want to invite any of the mama bears that are in the room right now, Fran, Carrie, Linda, anybody who feels so moved, Laura, to come up. We're going to share with you the now famous Mama Bear Picnic. So for those of you who don't know me, one of the quirky things I do is I change lyrics to songs and poems. So this one comes from like an old 1980s Sesame Street little cartoon called Ladybug Picnic, but we changed it to the Mama Bear Picnic, and then we did a Mama Bear picnic on a drill site until the police came and escorted us off and people were arrested, and then we did a Mama Bear bake sale using the same song. So we're going to share it with you, and if anybody would like to sing along, there's a couple more copies sort of generally available. It's catchy, you'll pick it up. Okay. You guys ready? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Mama bears came to the Mama Bears picnic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And they all gathered round at the Mama Bears picnic. Little bears sleeping safe at home, but if the pipeline's built, they'll be in the blast zone. Mama Bears 12 at the Mama Bears picnic. They wrote their reps and they signed petitions, spoke at rallies and legislative sessions. Then the Mama Bears 12 came to the Mama Bears picnic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they all locked arms at the Mama Bears picnic. They held their ground and they would not budge. They stayed all day to protect their cubs. The Mama Bears 12 at the Mama Bears picnic. And what we were all singing when several of us were arrested, including Fran. Thank you. So I have one more if I have, do I have a minute?
Yep.
Okay. So you guys will remember this one too from some of our protests and rallies. So funny story, earlier today we ran into Governor Wolf over at the Giant in East Goshen. He gave us a couple hours notice that he was going to be finally coming up to visit us and talk with residents who live along the pipeline route. For years, we've been asking Governor Wolf to come out and to visit privately with community members along the route, hear their stories, and take a tour of the pipeline. But he didn't do that. He came in the sweltering heat to the Giant parking lot where we stood for an hour waiting for him to show up, and then he finally did and listened to a few people speak. And today, Governor Wolf answered a question that we've been asking him for a long time. And that question is, which side are you on? So you may remember this from some of the protests and rallies that we've done. This is the Which Side Are You On Wolf song. Which side are you on, Wolf? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, Wolf? Which side are you on? They want to build a pipeline right through the center of town. Which side are you on, Wolf? Which side are you on? They want to tear up our land and poison our wells. Which side are you on, Wolf? Which side are you on? Will you stand with the people or will you choose the pipeline? Which side are you on, Wolf? Which side are you on? And today he finally answered that question. Can you guess what he said? He's not with us.
Hi, I'm Becky. I live on Middletown Road between Duffers and 926. And I just wanted to tell you about yet another problem that Sunoco is creating. We know that they already contaminate the ground. We know that they contaminate the water. Well, guess what? Now they're contaminating the air. The big construction site that you might have seen is an old orchard site. It's Fairhope Orchard, and it contains contaminants still in the soil. It was remediated for housing development, the Andover development. But that remediation meant state standards of 12 parts per million for arsenic. And that also meant that the people would have grass on their lawns, have driveways, have streets, impervious surfaces, we refer to those as, and the dust would not be released. And if you go through that community, you don't see any ongoing construction. You don't see people getting the dirt and throwing it up in the air. But that is exactly what Sunoco is doing at that site. They're tracking the dirt, the sediment, out onto the road. The trucks drive up and down the lane, giving off tremendous clouds of dust. That dust contains arsenic, lead, and dieldrin, the substances that are in the soil. Those substances are non-biodegradable, which means they stay there for a very, very long time. They're also bioaccumulating, which means if you breathe a little in today and you breathe a little in tomorrow, it stays in your body. It's not excreted. It's been documented that these substances can stay in the human body in mammalian mammals like us for up to a year. So 25 emails to the DEP, to the governmental agencies, to the Conservation District of Delaware County, to Thornbury Township, nothing. Nothing. I presented last night at Thornbury Township a very scientific study. I'm not making this up. We have scientific data and historical data as to what's going on. They actually picked the worst spot of the whole site to enter and exit. It's over a former what they call hotspot, which contained 120 parts per million of arsenic. The arsenic was diluted because dilution is the solution to pollution, down to 12 parts per million. A giant tiller came in and they tilled the dirt down 6 feet. But now what we have is a 6-foot column of contaminated soil at 12 parts per million. So finally, one person came out from Tetra Tech, the chief engineer, and he had the nerve to say to me that, oh, there's only a little bit in that soil. I'm going, well, show me the data. Show me the little bit that Sunoco considers a little bit. Oh, Sunoco didn't share the data with me. What? What? Are you kidding me? You're telling me that there's only a little bit in there and you don't have any data to back it up or to substantiate it when I've got a file this thick? Oh, there's nothing to worry about. No, not for him. He doesn't live there. We're talking about 3 substances. And by the way, dieldrin is a very close relative to DDT. It's considered a chlorophosphate. Modern insecticides are called organophosphates, and they're made to biodegrade relatively rapidly in the environment with sunlight and water. But the older ones, like DDT and dieldrin, didn't. It was great for farmers because it stayed for a long time, killing the insects, but it was terrible for the environment. So here we have another situation where Sunoco doesn't care. And I gave him an alternative, a very simple solution. Wouldn't cost that much. Move the exit and entrance to 926 where the farmer had his house and he did not spray the pesticides. So 0 contaminants in the pesticides. They actually closed that entrance down. If you go by now, you'll see a gate up there not allowing trucks to enter or exit. They use the driveway closest to Duffers, and that has the highest amount of these contaminants. Sunoco, again, is proving that they don't give a rat's ass. Sorry about the family thing. And who do you talk to? Who do you tell the story to? We've all encountered this. No one wants to listen to us. So I'm going to again to the township meeting, first Wednesday. I'd love for you to join me, Thornbury Township, Delaware County, and I'm again going to speak and confront the supervisors. The supervisor, Jim Wraith, who is the township commissioner for Thornbury, will be running for Delaware County Council. If he cannot protect the residents of Thornbury Township, how can he protect the residents of Delaware County? I don't know. My background has been a high school science teacher, AP Environmental Science for 33 years. So I have some chemistry background, I have some biological background. I'm not just blowing smoke up anybody's. Thank you. And I'm sorry for the letdown after that great performance.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks, folks, for coming. If this hadn't been such a crazy day, I wouldn't need this lyric sheet. This is a world premiere. About 25 years ago, in a town called, or near a town, in a ranching environment near a town called Brenham, Texas, the first really serious explosion involving natural gas liquids occurred. It took out several square miles and killed 3 people in spite of it being a very rural area. And the only warning that the people had who were in that area, and it leaked for over an hour before it exploded. The only warning that they had was they saw a mist coming up where the pipeline was, and they heard a whistling sound. Now the mist may or may not occur in the case of a leak. It happens because the gas coming out, the gas is under such high pressure that when it comes out, it becomes very cold. And if there's any moisture in the air, it forms droplets and it looks like a mist. The gas itself is invisible. So this is called Strange White Mist. This is a song about that incident. And the tune isn't mine. I actually stole 2 old Appalachian banjo tunes for this purpose, loosely based on those. Let me figure a good key here. There's a strange white mist in the valley. There's a high lonesome whistling sound. All the birds stopped their singing and they all flew away, and that mist spreading out across the ground. Tell me, what is that mist in the valley? Go run, fetch your mama here to see. Now why should there be mist right at noontime? Tell me, what can that white mist be? There's a strange white mist in the valley. There's a high lonesome whistling sound. All the birds stopped their singing and they all flew away, and that mist spreading out across the ground. There's a pipeline down in the valley. It runs right down by the creek, and you better get away from the valley if that pipeline should ever spring a leak. There's a strange white mist in the valley. There's a high lonesome whistling sound. All the birds stopped their singing and they all flew away, and that mist spreading out across the ground. Come here in my arms, little darling, turn your sweet face the other way. I don't want you looking down in the valley if something bad should happen here today. There's a strange white mist in the valley. There's a high lonesome whistling sound. All the birds stopped their singing and they all flew away, and the mist spreading out across the ground.
Yeah, I guess everybody pretty much knows my story, but it started, they took my property to eminent domain, and they have not settled. They won't talk to my attorneys. Their attorneys are refusing to even answer my attorney's phone calls. So the whole deal, we have no water. We haven't had any water for over 3 years. They're saying they didn't do it, but I had a hydrologist come in and he confirmed that they did it. Reported to DEP. DEP says, Sunoco says they didn't do it, so it's okay. And we still don't have no water. We're going to take them to court. Hopefully there'll be a jury trial. Anybody wants to come, they're welcome to come. And that's what I'm hoping for, because I've got bottles of water that I saved. If you look at the bottom of the water, you've probably seen pictures I have on Facebook and stuff that I put them on there. It's a bunch of yellow slime, and right now we had to drill a new well because it eats through my pipes. And now the new well, it's no good because it's got so much sulfur in it. You turn the water on, it comes out black. So you can't drink it, you can't hardly wash dishes, we can't cook, we can't eat. We have to go away every day to eat. My wife is handicapped, she can't hardly walk. And we're trying to tell them that if anything happens, what are we supposed to do? They won't answer us. Other than that, if anybody wants to talk about it after this is over, we can talk. I do have I'm helping Wilbur Baker with his case. I guess a lot of you are maybe familiar with it. If you're not, he's sitting back here. He's going to come up here and talk a little bit. I do have copies of the transcript if anybody wants them. I have about 4 or 5 copies on CD if anybody wants to know what went on with that. Because we're trying to make them take notice to what they're doing. And the hearing was pretty interesting because their attorney, Kurt, I think his name's Kurt Stambaugh, their head attorney, he got up on the stand and lied about me, claiming that they paid me and they paid me twice. I haven't received a penny, and he says they did. And I've sent a separate letter to Judge Barnes that's doing it, and I don't know if it'll do any good or not, but they do know a little bit what's going on. And whenever I went up at the end of the hearing, I went up to Stambaugh's, their attorneys that were doing a mystic or something with his name. I said, you know, your attorney there lying on the stand. He said, we do what we got to do. And it was his words. That's exactly what he told me. And I went up and told Judge Barnes the same thing, and he said that. So she says, I know your story. And that's about it. You know, if anybody needs anything, it's just as easy to talk afterwards, or if you need any help with anything, let me know. I'm here. That's about it.
Give a little bit of a background on this one. Way back when the first sinkholes opened on Lisa Drive in Exton and Chester County, we decided that we would have a march or a rally down the road to where the homes were with the sinkholes. And this was the flyer that we put out to everyone to get them to come to the rally. So that's how that came to be.
There's also a big poster of this, I think, around the corner.
Yes, this is
here.
part of the art exhibit too. The drawing is by Melissa DiBernardino. Annette put together the whole graphics for the poster, and I changed the lyrics to the Cat in the Hat. That's what I do. Okay.
You guys would read the bold italics on the sheet, please. Oh, thank you.
And then something went bump, and that bump made us jump. We looked and we saw it, it dropped like a bowl. We looked and we saw it, a giant sinkhole. And the DEP said to us, "Why do you sit there like that? We know it is wet and the ground is unstable, but Sunoco has got a big seat at the table." "We know some good games we could play," said the state of PA. "We will show them to you. Your local townships will not mind if we do." Then we did not know what to say. It seemed that Sunoco would soon have their way, but our community said,
"No, make that fight go away. Tell that Sunoco ETB we do not want to play. You should not be here, you should not be around. You should not be here on unstable harsh ground."
Now, have no fear," said Jeff Shields, their spokesman. "Our tricks are not bad. Why, we can have fun, if you like, with a game I call Down, Down, Down with the Pipe."
Stop, stop.
Kind people.
You are ruining our town. We do not like this fight. We do not want it down.
Look what you've done with your bores and your drills. Look what you've done with your holes and your spills. Look at this house, look at this, look at that. You've sank the whole hood, sank it deep in a vat. You dumped your cement, you ruined this yard. You think you're immune, but you've played your last card. We will pick up this sword, you will see something new. We will stop it, you see, pipe 1 and pipe 2. We will do it together, we will see it is shut. We will slay it for good with the 1,000 cut.
I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Wilbur Baker. I was a United Steelworker for 37 and a half years. Hazmat worker. I was trained by the federal government. And years ago, I received a book, a safety pamphlet in the mail. And I didn't think much of it. And then I retired and I ran across Mr. Blum. And I found that they had taken his land, stole his land, and ruined his well and everything. And I thought, well, this is just a little too much. Let's find out about it. So I go to my township and I tell them about it. And first of all, they tell me they didn't know a thing about Sunoco. And they asked me to bring a safety manual along, which they had sent to me. And in the safety manual, it said that if you wake up in the middle of the night, if you wake up, and you smell an odorless gas, you're not supposed to light a cigarette, turn a light on, ring a doorbell, jump in your car. You're supposed to get up without any knowledge and walk upwind of this pipeline that's leaking. So I took it to the local township, and they told me they didn't know anything about it and they would contact Sunoco. Well, the next time I went to the meeting was in July 10th, and Sunoco was to be there. 2 hours before the meeting, they called the state police. They bowed out of the meeting, they called the state police. We got there were 6 state cops waiting for us. When the state police seen that everybody was over the age of 50, I guess they chuckled a little bit. 4 of them left and 2 stayed there. So we go into the township meeting, and the 2 state police, they sit behind me and my partner, and the township starts with, well, since Sunoco isn't here, we're not going to bring this up. So everybody just kind of gasped. We had people there from Lancaster and Lebanon, what's going on here and everything. So they started going through the minutes of the meeting and everything, and they come across this, we need $500 to pay for a pipeline inspector. And all those in favor say aye. And they all said aye, and I said nay. And they all looked at me and they said, what do you mean nay? And I said, well, I'd like to ask a question. I said, who's this pipeline inspector you're talking about? Well, this is a Sunoco's pipeline inspector. You know, they go and damage the roads and everything. They give us an estimate what we're going to pay. And I said, well, since you bridged the story here about Sunoco we're not to talk about. I said, how dare you son of a bitches, excuse my language, turn around and charge me $500, me in this township here, to have a pipeline inspector come in for the damages that Sunoco did. And about that time, everything broke loose and everything. Everybody was jumping on the township and everything. Then about 40 minutes or so later and everything, everybody walked outside. The big meeting was outside. We were all standing out there and everything, you know. About that time, the township supervisors come out and they looked around all sheepish and everything and walked away and jumped in their cars and went. And then the 2 state police come and they looked around a little bit and then they walked up to us and they said, off the record, we were told to arrest you if you stand out of line. I said, arrest me for what? I'm a law-abiding citizen. I was a United Steelworker. I was president of the union, hazmat worker. I said, what the hell's going on here? Why are you doing this? And so this is what we were told. The township had the state police here. So the next month, my township turned around and contacted their lawyers and everything, and their lawyers told them that they had no responsibility to protect the people in our township. They turned it over to the county commissioners, Cumberland County Commissioners. The county commissioners set up 3 meetings. Sunoco snubbed their nose at them, basically told them to go to hell, and away they went. The county commissioners are in touch with me, and they turned around. They sent a letter to the PUC. The PUC, Gladys Brown and everything, told them that they must have outreach meetings regardless. They said that there was a case of litigation. They were afraid for confidential material on the litigation that they were afraid to talk about. So after I found all this out, I had filed my complaint back in August. And ever since that, we had our hearing and everything. They tried to delay me and everything. They tried to combine me with all the cases that were going on down here. And Rosemary Chavetis turned around, was going to combine my case with everybody down here. And the judge said, no, we want to hear this man by himself. I said, okay. So I turn around and I go through a period of discovery. And here's Sunoco's lawyers turned around and sent me a paper, billing order of 17 pages. 16 pages were written in Greek. The very front page was a French paper. And it said, Steelmaking Company, Archer Mitchell, France. These pipes are being made in France. And they're being sent over to Greece, and they're stenciling Greece on them. And they're bringing them over. And my people, 1688, is the United Steelworkers in Steel, Pennsylvania. They represent not only Archer Mitchell, who's making imported steel in France and breaking the law, but Dorabon, which has a complaint into the Commerce Department. The federal government, as of this year in February, caught up to them that they're breaking the law. They haven't caught up to the fact that the pipes are coming from France, but they're coming from Greece. In 2015, they sent 197 million tons, metric tons of steel into this country under false names. Archer Mitchell is right in Steelton, Pennsylvania. They could make the pipes there and transport them 20 miles down the road to the pipeline. But instead, Archer Mitchell is being subsidized by a foreign government to make the pipes for 10 cents on the dollar and ship them over here on a ship and bring them through. Kinder Morgan I got from, it's called a Plain Jane, it's Freedom of Information Act. I got this from Freedom of Information Act. Kinder Morgan was cited by the federal government back in 2007, 2009 of having over 7,160 feet of improper steel that they had to dig up. The government made them dig all that up. Kinder Morgan then turned around and used a front company called Corinthal Pipe Works and put an order through them to buy this pipe in France. So they're breaking import laws. And they're bringing this in, Archer Mitchell, Dorabon, the Stute Corporation, all of them are crooked as can be. And then on top of that, when I come into this...
A few more minutes.
Okay, to make it quick, their lawyers turned around and gave me a paper, gave the judge a paper, and it said if a man decides that he's going to represent himself without the benefit of an attorney, he does it on his own peril. So they started to character assassinate all my witnesses. Said they're not experts, they didn't know what they were talking about. Their witnesses had testified 4 different times and were paid to do so. They actually said to one man, one of their expert witnesses, most of my money this year is through litigation. They pay me 20% of my paycheck this year for getting up here in a rehearsed testimony against all the people in the pipeline. I am the only pipeline case that's up and running. Everybody else has been put off to 2020. But there's a lot more to it with the import laws and everything else going on. They've broken all kinds of laws that a lot of people don't know anything about. So I'll just leave it at that then. Thank you very much.
So I wanted to share a short story that I wrote. It was inspired by George Alexander's blog, the Dragon Pipe Diary blog. He has information about the massive fossil fuel tankers called dragon ships. My short story is called Forgotten People. How would you feel it came to sacrifice our people, to take possession and poison our small towns and old family farms? Now hidden beneath the surface lies a powerful, rotting dragon, seething with invisible putrid breath, so foul it fells anyone who comes too close. It lies in wait all day, all night, beneath children's swing sets and neighborhood vegetable gardens. This insidious beast was once only a myth, but I assure you it is real. It slithers in tunnels of depths unknown. Its sinister spit spoils our waters. It's burned our woods and homes, scorching the earth, leaving deep craters. It was laid here by the so-called chosen ones. They came here to worship their hollowed-out corpse pet and all its poison. We were invaded. While we slept, it was written with handshakes between cowboy boots and tailored suits. Now our people are trapped and silenced in its toxic shadow. We will not rest until we know our people are safe. We are reminded of words spoken long ago. As our land turns dark and we are marked, it is up to us to earn our worth for this old, dying earth. Lest we fall, we shall rise above to heed the dire call. From human hellfires, we bring changes to defeat this dragon of sick, morbid desires. For in this work, for you and me, we must bind our fate to be free.
I'm going to read a poem by American poet W.S. Merwin. He died this year after living well into his 80s, but he was a poet of conscience and environmentalist. And before I get to it, I just wanted to make a small note on profanity. People have been very polite to sort of catch themselves, but some things are profane, and I think it's totally, how you've been using it tonight is totally appropriate. There is no profanity in this poem, though. This is the last one by William Stanley Merwin. Well, they'd made up their minds to be everywhere, because why not? Everywhere was theirs, because they thought so. They with 2 leaves, they whom the birds despise. In the middle of stones, they made up their minds. They started to cut. Well, they cut everything, because why not? Everything was theirs, because they thought so. It fell into its shadows, and they took both away. Some to have, some for burning. While cutting everything, they came to water. They came to the end of the day. There was one left standing. They would cut it tomorrow. They went away. The night gathered in its last branches. The shadow of the night gathered in the shadow on the water. The night and the shadow put on the same head, and it said, now. Well, in the morning, they cut the last one. Like the others, the last one fell into its shadow. It fell into shadow on the water. They took it away. Its shadow stayed on the water. Well, they shrugged. They started trying to get the shadow away. They cut right to the ground. The shadow stayed whole. They laid boards on it. The shadow came out on top. They shone lights on it. The shadow got blacker and clearer. They exploded the water. The shadow rocked. They built a huge fire on the roots. They sent up black smoke between the shadow and the sun. The new shadow flowed without changing the old one. They shrugged. They went away to get stones. They came back. The shadow was growing. They started setting up stones. It was growing. They looked the other way. It went on growing. They decided they would make a stone out of it. They took stones to the water. They poured them into the shadow. They poured them in. They poured them in. The stones vanished. The shadow was not filled. It went on growing. That was one day. The next day was just the same. It went on growing. They did all the same things. It was just the same. They decided to take its water from under it. They took away water, they took it away, the water went down. The shadow stayed where it was before. It went on growing, it grew onto the land. They started to scrape the shadow with machines. When it touched the machines, it stayed on them. That was another day. Well, the next day started, about the same. It went on growing. They pushed lights into the shadow. Where the shadow got onto them, they went out. They began to stomp on the edge. It got their feet. And when it got their feet, they fell down. It got into the eyes. The eyes went blind. The ones that fell down, it grew over, and they vanished. The ones that went blind and walked into it vanished. The ones that could see and stood still, it swallowed their shadows. Then it swallowed them too, and they vanished. Well, the others ran. The ones that were left went away to live, if it would let them. They went as far as they could, the lucky ones with their shadows.
I was with the group in, where the heck were we? Westchester at Giant, meeting Governor. It's been a day. I shook Governor Wolf's hand. I got to show him pictures of what my backyard looks like right now. It's a pullback zone, which is basically a drill site with welding and fumes and house shaking and noise. And of course, we were not prepared or told that this is what we were going to be going through. So I reached out to so many people and state agencies and learned that no one regulates off-road machinery diesel emission. So I have no protection against the fumes that are coming into my house. With the windows shut and 3 industrial grade air purifiers running. So there's basically no laws right now to protect my clean air in my own home, in my own yard. This, of course, was devastating. I connected with PK Diddy, Carrie Gross, Danielle Otten. I've met so many amazing people. I think that's been the only good thing of this whole journey is the collateral beauty of meeting so many amazing, strong, smart, savvy, well-spoken people that are helping me find my voice and guide me to stick up for my rights and at least speak my voice. So I'm still learning. In any event, I wrote a poem called Unearthed. This was the day that they came in on April 3rd and started setting up the 50-foot metal sound barrier, which really doesn't work for anything other than I don't have to see their faces in my backyard. So Unearthed, eminent domain, the powerful name for a corporate game to achieve private gain. Public utility they claimed. Truth, plastics production we exclaim. Our lives not the same, 4 years in and more remain. Greed is to blame, backyard is a frame, picturing our pain. A volatile gas train, a government's shame. That's it.
Helping the Safety 7. It's a group of 7 individuals that actually have a court case. It's, the first hearing will be in Westchester in October of this year, but the final hearing is actually going to be in 2020. And one of the things we've done, we've created this postcard that's pre-addressed to Governor Wolf, so that you could write a message on the back and tell him how you feel, send it in. We're hoping that, a lot of them, and we actually have a cork board back there. You can either put your postcard on the cork board, or there's also a box that you could drop it in and we'll mail it for you. Or take as many as you want, take them home, give them to your friends and family. So please grab a card, a few, take them home, or leave a message there. Thank you.
I wasn't planning to speak, but my friend and poet Drew Dellinger wrote a poem that I try to read when I want people to pay attention to what's happening, and it's called Hieroglyphic Stairway. It begins, 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals and the reptiles, birds, they were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? There's more to the poem, but I think that it's a long poem, but that's the salient part. I think that more and more I'm waking up at 3:23 in the morning and asking myself that question. So, thanks.
Between 25 and 40 people, creating more than 25 episodes of what we came to call the Mariner East web series. If you go to MarinerEastTheSeries.com, you will see 2 3/4 hours worth of people who allowed us to come into their homes and record their stories. Ralph and Doris Blum were one of those couples that allowed us to come in. We were grateful for that. Eve Miari, Melissa Haynes, and we came to meet Mitch through Eric Friedman. We put drone footage up across all of them, so it was not an attempt to be filmic. It wasn't a Ken Burns kind of thing. It was just letting people tell their stories, and the stories were horrifying. Okay, it got to be too much for us. Well, it got to be too much for me. So after about 18 months, I stopped. However, last year, Sunoco put out a commercial during, it was a football game, I think it was, about safety being their first priority. And it was so profoundly, oh, and Paula, by the way, we got you in that township meeting, you'll recall. But this commercial came up, and it was such an absolute bald-faced set of lies that I went from empathy to profound anger, which is where comedy gets its energy from. So I did a parody of this 30-second pipeline. Does everyone know who Obama's anger translator is?
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, this is not an anger translator. This is the difference between what Sunoco was actually saying out loud, if you will, and what Sunoco was actually thinking. That was the genesis for this parody. Okay, thank you.
Then they had a man in from the PUC, he's pretty high up and everything, and he turned around and said, legislative committee is sponsoring a bill. It's in the Senate right now, and it's going to be open transparency, which they're supposed to have right now, which they aren't doing, which is a sham. And then after that, they had this fellow from the PUC, I can't even tell you what his name is, he's pretty high up as one of their commissioners or whatever. And he turned around and said, but we got to be careful with the legislator because of confidentiality. We got to make sure that the pipeline workers are respected, their confidentiality, and those that live beside the pipeline too. I live beside the pipeline. And recently my mother died and I started having convulsions. And they put me on medicine and they took my driver's license away from me. And I live in the blast zone. So I turned around and I went and told the township about it. I said, well, number one, you need an alarm system. You need to have a private rapid response force to be able to do this. And an odorant in that. They shot all that down. So I went to the state, the PHRC, and I filed a charge of civil rights, saying that they are now violating my civil rights because I live in a blast zone and they have devalued my property that I still pay taxes on. So the PHRC now is filing a civil rights complaint against Sunoco on my behalf. And I was told from some people down here that you have 40 elementary schools and you have old folks' homes right along the blast zone. So the people that live in the blast zone and everything, the old people, they should have civil rights filed for them because it's age discrimination. I'm 64 years old, and the state said they'd get back to me within 6 to 8 months about filing my civil rights complaint and sending it to Sunoco. Whether it does any good or not, I don't know. But it's something for everybody to think about. If you have people in retirement homes down here, who's going to get them out of the way? Nobody. So put the ball back into the state's hands. and say if you can't win through the PUC, win through the PHRC. And if you can't win there, you file your charge through EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. They asked me, they said, well, how are you being discriminated against? You're retired, so it's not employment. It's not education because you're 64 years old. I said, no, but it's housing. And now my house has been devalued, so I'm being discriminated against, and I still pay the same damn taxes. So I've now filed a thing with Cumberland County to reduce my taxes to the lowest possible, because I don't have an alarm system or any damn way out of there if they do have a thing that leaks. So it's an idea for everybody down here to think about. Civil rights is the way to go. If you can't win one way, win the other way. If you can't go in the front door, go in the back door. Use them against each other if necessary.
It's just a real honor to be part of the exhibit here, and thank you, Carrie, for putting it together. It just looks really amazing, all the different work that's up here. And I'm also really excited that a number of people who are in the photographs are in the room tonight, and particularly Ralph, Mr. Blum, that you're here from such a long distance away. Actually, maybe it's not over here. Yeah. Is it down there? Normally I have him up there. Maybe it's not there. What really, I've been really inspired by your stories, resisting the pipeline, and I first heard about it when I took this photograph. I went out to Elise and Ellen Gerhardt's property where they had the tree sit going on, and for some reason in my brain I didn't connect that the state of Pennsylvania goes from west to east, and that the pipeline would do the same thing. And it wasn't until Sam Rubin over here let me know that there would be an action out at near Eric Friedman's property that I really started to put some pieces together, and that the impact of this pipeline was going all the way across the state. And that's why I started to get to know many of your stories. And you've all been really kind to give me a lot of information, more information than I can possibly process. And so I've tried to balance the details that someone like George is holding on to with a larger picture of what is the movement, what does the movement look like as people who are organizing themselves to resist this large project that has a lot of money behind it, and how you all are exercising your power in different ways and your voices. So my project is called Lives on the Line. Obviously you all live on the line. Many of you have put your lives on the line. Without your choosing, your lives are literally on the line if something was to happen to it. And I've been really impressed with many of the different ways that people have, the different strategies that you've come up with to push back at different levels, whether it's at local government, whether it's regional governments, whether it's Pennsylvania, the PUC. I've traveled with you in different locations, and just the tenacity that you all bring inspires me to do the work that I do. And so I think the thing that gives me the most inspiration to keep going is when I see the look in your eye when you see some of my photographs and you go, wow, we look like that we were so powerful in that. And so that's my gift to you, yeah, keep at it. Appreciate it. Thank you.